All right. Welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg. So glad to be talking to you today. And so glad to talk to you too, Carlos. Carlos Giles, welcome back to Halitics. How you doing, my friend?
Good, good, good. Always glad to be here. Always glad to be here. I've been watching the show, trying to keep up with what's going on and different stuff y'all been talking about. You definitely are in like my top YouTube news feeds.
Well, we're going to get to a couple of your others of your favorites, I think, in today's program. We got some clips to show you, Carlos. And, the reason I really wanted to have you back more than any other was I wanted your take on the Seattle conference I was at over the weekend, Worker Strike Back, organized by Shama Sawant from Seattle. And Chris Hedges and Jill Stein were the other headliners. So I've got clips from those three, and I want your take. And I'm not, even though I was there and I really like what they're doing generally, I don't necessarily agree with everything that was said. I know you don't either. So we'll get into that. We're going to talk also about, actually, I don't think I have a Jill Stein clip. I have a Dr. Butch Ware clip. He wasn't there, but it addresses one of the issues you and I have discussed. We'll talk about Joy Reid, her discharge, termination, firing, whatever term you want to use. And maybe we'll get into reparations a little bit too. So a lot of different topics. Oh, one last thing. We worked at our revolution together. So we'll talk about those progressive, in quotes, institutions and what good they're doing. Should we just get right to it? Or do you have any quick, little chit chat you want to get into?
Let's get right to it. That's a jam-packed agenda, so I love it.
Got a lot to talk about. Really just want to say one more thing. Usually, this is the first program I'm doing that isn't live streamed. We're actually recording this Thursday night because I need to accommodate Carlos' schedule. Carlos is a working man and he can't come on noon like myself and some of our other guests. So I really wanted to accommodate him. So no calls. We won't be taking calls today.
Thank you, Hal.
Carlos, I'm going to just take the whole screen, fill it up. This is Kashama Sawant. Now, she was the first speaker, so here's what she thinks we need to do. Let's get your feedback on this.
We need to similarly go on the offensive today. And the logistics industry, and specifically Amazon, is crucial. This industry underpins the billionaire's profit-making machine. Unionizing Amazon is therefore a strategically necessary task of the working class. A victory at Amazon would shift the balance of power between bosses and workers. It would set off a wave of strikes and unionization efforts comparable to the massive worker organizing wave of the 1930s. But defeating Amazon will be far from easy. We have seen that even when Amazon workers win union elections, the company will refuse to negotiate. Workers will need to take mass coordinated strike action at multiple key facilities and shut down profits in order to win a union and their demands. We need to
I'm going to just stop it there for just a moment. We'll play more of Shama, Carlos, but I just want to get your take on her primary strategy, that is focusing specifically on one massive company, Amazon. What's your reaction off the cuff?
I like that. I think that is one, it's more targeted, so you can kind of bring in more people around it, because then people start looking at, if it's too broad, people start bringing in their personal thoughts on, like, well, I like this company, I can only get this product at this company. So targeting Amazon, which is probably at this point, no, it is past Walmart and as the largest employer in the country. And if they ever started having physical stores, they'd be just the larger employer in the whole nation of virtual and of retail stores as well. So I love the strategy. I think that I would love to see how that works in like other countries I guess other countries already are so far ahead in this kind of protest movement and things like this. So no, I totally agree with her.
Yeah, I think it makes sense too. I really don't have a lot to add, except what I'm hearing from a lot of activists, and it's not really to add, it's more like a question, is that we really now need to cut the cord with Amazon, stop buying items from Amazon. And I will, be the first to fess up. I really like shopping at Amazon. I hate going to stores. It takes up all my time. It's so easy to click. They deliver it to my house. They have everything I could want. The prices are pretty low. They're not always the lowest, but they're usually low. I don't want to give that up, Carlos.
No, that's the other part. I feel like if there was a mass protest movement, it'd be easier to give it up. But at this moment, myself, I'm like, okay, I do like being able to just from home, one click. Oh, I bought like 10 things, and it can all come on the same day too. So
I
it's a
mean, you
little bit
feel
more.
me on this, right?
No,
I
it's
mean,
hard. It's hard to give it to Amazon. I feel like, but you know what? At the same time, I will say, if we can do a mass protest movement to get up on Amazon, that really would show how much power we actually can wield and things like that. Because that is going to be one of the hardest kind of give up things out here.
I want the government to do this. I want the government to say, hey, Amazon, you can do business the way you do it in certain ways because it really is super convenient. But we're going to break you up. It's not going to be like you get to sell everything under the sun and you're vertically and horizontally integrated. We're going to break you up and we're going to make sure that you let people who work in your store, factories, fulfillment centers, whatever you want to call them, they all get to unionize. I just feel like I don't want it to be on me, but it is, right? It's on us.
Yeah, it has to be on us because if it's not on us, the elected officials won't ever. I mean, honestly, it's hard to believe that they would ever do it. But I think with this though, there needs to be a cultural shift in America as well to start saying some of these corporations and companies, we need to just stop voting for people who get money from them in general. Just saying, okay, cool, you get money from certain groups or any outside kind of companies at all. We're just not. You lose our support in general because it's nice for us always to say that, oh, they have money, we have people, but if we don't use that and actually say, no, if you're taking certain money, then there are repercussions for it. To them, they're just going to keep raising as much money as they can, do whatever they want to, and just put out enough ads to win.
Well, the other thing about saying they have money, we have people, the problem with that, as I see it, is money is people because they could just hire people with their money. And people who are getting paid are often a lot more motivated than folks who are doing it as a volunteer on a Saturday afternoon when it's not a Saturday afternoon, it's a Tuesday morning or it's a Tuesday night and it's cold and raining and unpleasant out. But if you're getting paid, you're going to be out there.
Yeah, I mean, even look at what happened with Elon Musk for Trump. All the PAC money he spent out of his own pocket, hiring just canvassers all over the place, and people were thinking, "Oh, that's not really going to do much." It's like, no, those people got a paycheck, and they're thinking, "All right, cool, I'm gonna do some work at least." And even so, even if it wasn't like people doing the most work out, they're gonna still do just enough to get by and keep this and keep a little, side pocket money.
Yeah, no question about it. It's really tough. I've said this before and I get criticized for it, but we on the left, we're outgunned and we're outstaffed because of that fact. And it does make life really rough for those of us who are fighting, I think, for justice, for true justice, economic justice. All right, let's hear a little more from Shama Sawan. By the way, you get a sense of it from her, but she speaks quickly and she has kind of, she has that lilting Indian voice. She is, I believe, Indian, not Indian. I don't believe she's Indian American. I believe she was born in India. She's Indian American now. I may be wrong about that. But when you're with Shama and you hear her in a room, she's very powerful. She really grabs. She has a lot of riz, as folks. Well, you're probably too old to say riz, right? I mean, I'm way too old.
But no, good. I like that. I like that. One thing I will say too is the left, for all the criticisms of how we organize together sometimes and all that, we have some good speakers. Like we can run the gamut on some people who can command a room.
Well, we're going to hear from a bunch of them. Let's play some more Shama here, just a little more, because she goes, I think there's a little more on Amazon that I want to get to.
Full power of the labor movement and support Amazon workers' efforts with all possible resources. Rank and file union members will need to get organized together across unions, along with non-union workers, to demand action from existing labor leaders and to build a new fighting union leadership.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. There's more, and we're going to get to it. But when she was saying this in the room, I'll be honest with you, Carlos, I got a little skeptical. We have such low union density, especially among non-government workers who really need that protection. This is a very, very heavy lift as I hear it. I mean, it's easy to say. I don't know how it's done.
I think, to me, it's Yeah, I mean it's hard. I think it needs to be selective kind of just drives for unions at places like Amazon, at places like the major employers first. I think having a strategic focus on those major employers, while yes, supporting those who are doing it at their like local small businesses or just local businesses and things like that. But starting unions at these major places, that'll make it easier to do this big like union drive where you don't need every single worker from every single sector to do it, but you'll have enough people coming together in kind of in key areas that'll like shut down the country's major thing. Like if Amazon shut down, that affects a lot of people. If the like railway system shuts down, that affects a lot of people. But I mean, we saw kind of a situation where the railroad workers could shut down, and then you kind of saw government get in and say, "Well, no, thank you. We like our rail system to act, and we don't really want to help you, union members." But I guess companies and businesses that don't have those same ties make them be able to do that as well.
You know what? I also liked when we were at our revolution. This may have been, I guess you left a little before I did, but we were doing some work to unionize or to push for unionization of the Starbucks workers. And I like that too, because so many people go to Starbucks, and if Starbucks really makes it too tough on those folks and they walk out, their strikes, what have you, people will very quickly find there's other coffee shops that are better, in my opinion, certainly locally owned, locally operated. It would be a huge blow. Amazon's hard to replace. I don't think Starbucks is hard to replace.
No, not at all. I mean, Starbucks is essentially, I don't drink coffee, but from what I hear, it tastes burnt. So I mean, you could just go next door to a coffee shop, local, yeah, anywhere, and get probably better coffee.
Well, you certainly get it better in my kitchen because I was in Seattle, which is supposed to have the best coffee, and I certainly didn't get any coffee from Starbucks in Seattle, which is the home of Starbucks. But I was missing my little French press coffee maker very much, and glad to get home and
You know,
have some non bitter coffee for
I
a
wonder
change.
what's the reason behind like Amazon and Starbucks as these major corporations both being started in Seattle. Like, is there something about Seattle that makes it easy to kind of start these large companies as well?
Wow, I never thought of that. That's a really good point about them both being Seattle based. Yeah, yeah. All right, let's get. I'm going to think about it. I mean, coffee's big in Seattle. It is. It isn't just Starbucks. And now I think it's kind of like out. Right? It's not cool. It's not cool to go to Starbucks in Seattle. But at one time, obviously, it was. All right, let's get more from Shamak here because she's going to talk about politics in a moment, and I wanted your take on that. So she's talking about how union workers need to unite and non-union workers. She gets a lot of applause there. Again, we all like it. We like the concept, but the practice is going to be more challenging. Also, Carlos, before we get into her talk on politics, just briefly, one other point that was made throughout the conference over and over and over is how the labor leaders, the union bosses, have been betraying the workers, that they give in. You have this guy, Sean O'Brien. I think he's one of the two. There's two Seans, Fain and O'Brien. Fain is GM, and which is O'Brien? Or is it the other way around?
No, I think you're right. Fain, I think was the
Teamsters. Teamsters.
Yeah,
No, Fain is GM. O'Brien is Teamsters.
Yeah.
And O'Brien has said that he believes maybe we don't need right to work laws. Maybe they aren't so bad. Right to work is right to work for less. That is that they can't force you can't be forced to be part of a union. You can't be forced. You can always just not pay your union dues, even if there's a union. And it's terrible. It's terrible for working people. And O'Brien has said, yeah, well, maybe Trump's got a point there.
So the big union leader, Sean O'Brien, is basically saying like we believe people really don't need to invest in unions. Like that's not a big deal. Like you can just have it, defund it, and then I guess it's gonna. To me, how are you a union leader then? To me, he should say, okay, cool, I'm going to step down. I'm going to do whatever I have next or work for a lobbyist or just be done and let other people step up in his place. Because to me, if you're not even going to fight for like one of the main aspects of having a union to keep the union to surviving, what's the point of you even being there?
He's the Hakeem Jeffries of the union movement.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, there's nothing we can do, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was, that's the argument. All right, more from Shama, and definitely want your thoughts on this section.
Some people will ask, shouldn't we be running a lot of candidates for office? We do need to prepare the ground for a mass party of working people. But speaking as a former elected representative of working people myself, my answer to that question will be no, not right now. Not right now is not when we can run lots of candidates for office. Our movement at present is not strong enough to run significant numbers of candidates. Elections are also not the main way that change happens. People with progressive ideas get elected all the time, but without a strong movement behind them, they get absorbed into the system. All right,
I'm going to stop it there. So a lot in that very short section. And the first point she made is we do need to run candidates, but we're not big enough, we're not strong enough to elect them in large numbers. So the focus should be on unionizing first. Your response?
I think yes, yes, I do think that we are not at the point where we can have what we had in 2018 with the Justice Democrats and work on like 7, 8, 9 different congressional races and hope that we're going to win those and be able to hold them all to or hold them in some account. I think we can focus on, and I think the movement should either, if you look at what the Green Party did in this last election or wherever, figure out where they did the best and where independent candidates like the PSL candidate, the Cornel West and all them, where they did the best, and focus on maybe those like 1 or 2 congressional districts, those 1 or 2 local races, and build from there as far as the electoralism route. But you also have to make sure that they are of a place that they're going to hold to what they say too. And making it that small will make it easier for the people in those areas to be like, cool, we can elect you just like we can unelect you at the same time. But you need to also make sure that the constituents, the advocacy groups that help get them elected understand that their power as elected official comes from you all, not the other way around. Because I think that's what happened when AOC took her turn talking about how Kamala Harris is working tirelessly for a ceasefire, or you get the other people kind of like going against their like values. I mean, to me, Ayanna Pressley was someone who was a part of the squad. We really don't even hear about her now when it comes to progressive things. It's just kind of like,
honestly, just you brought up Pressley. To me, she's always been kind of like squad light. She was the least outspoken. I never saw her taking really aggressive positions the way certainly Rashida Tlaib, for me, is the most the one I like the most. Let me put it that way. The one I trust the most. I think AOC is a sellout. Some people disagree. I really have no respect for her at this point. But Pressley, I just didn't even really think she was progressive. We heard her speak. Were you on any of those Our Revolution calls? She spoke on one, and she didn't impress. Personally, she didn't do it for me.
To me, I think she's a good speaker if you just like take it from just a listening to her speak kind of standpoint. When it comes to her as a stalwart of left ideas and left policies, I mean, she supports the main progressive issues. Outside of that, she's not someone I would look to and say, okay, if she's gonna attack people on her own team as Democrats for actually pushing them to the left. She'll take her votes where she feels like, okay, I got to vote on this because of my constituents. I got to do this. But she's happy just playing the game like AOC has turned out now. To me, AOC is probably the worst the worst one of the mix when you look at it, that I don't know how much it was her or just people positioned her as like she's the head of it all. She's the one who's actually going to push this fight. And then to see her when she was trying to take out or win over Jerry O'Connell for the head of, or the the ranking member on the oversight committee, to see that she was even saying, I'm fine never endorsing a primary opponent to anyone. So it's like, wait, so the way you came in, the thing that people elected you for to kind of push this radical change in the Democratic Party, you're now saying, I'm done with that mission. I want to fold into the party. Give me something out of it. And I think this is something that people on the left are learning or need to learn, is that the moment you show any opposition to the party, there is no you coming back from that. A lot of times it's cool. You can do everything you want to be a part of it, but at the end of the day, you're not wanted. They're waiting for you to go just
Although
whenever they choose.
Bernie has actually did manage to get a position as a chair of a committee, so he kind of bucked that. But I think that's partly because he wasn't in the party. He wasn't independent, so
And they need him.
they could justify, well, he is taking us on, so we'll go with Bernie. All of them have disappointed me in various ways. I think Tlaib, because she stood the strongest for Palestinian people, is the one that I feel, some real affection for, some affinity for. So back to what Sawant said. So she says, hey, we're not very strong. You like the idea of focusing, well, she doesn't even say it. You think there should be a focus on one or two districts. And my response is yes, but the focus should be on electing not Democrats. Because she says, and I agree with this, once, they're good people, they seem good, I'm willing to accept AOC really had the right, had the right ideas. When she was elected, her heart was in the right place, but that heart was pretty quickly turned cold.
Yeah.
And she lost what soul she might have had. So I think that you need to have an alternative to the Democrats. You need another power center, would be my take on that.
Okay, I can see that. I also would say that I think, I'm even fine with people running in the Democratic Party, possibly winning the Democratic primary, and then switching over to independent and just using the Democratic Party kind of like a megaphone, and just say, we're going to use you to reach more people, but then once we're done, we're out. And we'll leave y'all sitting there.
Would have loved to have seen Bernie do that. Would have loved to have seen AOC. When she got elected, she could have said, yeah, I'm not a Democrat anymore, but thanks for helping out. Exactly. It's like the jiu-jitsu, right? You use your opponent against them. So
to me, Rashida Tlaib could have been the test case for that working. She had all the Democrats coming against her for Palestine. She could have said at this last election, even going as far as winning the Democratic primary, just to, if she didn't want no one else to run and be a thing of them beating her, at least do that, get the nomination, and then switch over to independent. And then people will vote for her over whoever the no-name Republican person would probably be.
Well, 100% on that, Carlos. And the final point, she said, we're not strong enough to run. We're not strong enough, but here's my I have a reaction to that, which is, I think we're not strong enough to have union organizing, except maybe, as she says, in Amazon. But how hard is it to vote? I mean, you go into the booth. See, and I did a show on this. I don't know if you saw it, where I kind of get a little bit irritated at the people who throw up their hands and say, we can't make political change, because we could have voted for Bernie. We all could have just voted for Bernie. Well, you couldn't have, because you weren't 18, I don't think, in 2016.
No.
Were you? Not quite.
I turned 18 a little bit. Actually, no. Yeah, I was.
You voted in 2016?
I voted. Yes, I did vote in the 2016 election. Yep, I voted.
Okay, you know what? It's because I'm thinking. Yeah. So either way, we could have elected Bernie. We didn't have to do what Madeleine Albright said and all vote for the woman or we're going to go to hell. And Cory Booker's sitting there applauding. Yeah, we'll go. And I'm like, no, we didn't have to do that, but we did. We didn't have to vote for Biden in 2020. Heck, in 2024, we could have voted for Jill Stein. So that's why I don't understand the argument. Maybe you can help me with this. That it's too hard. We just can't run people. We couldn't run people. It doesn't cost that much, and just to vote for them.
Yeah, I think, okay, so I see your point, but I'll offer some pushback then, or play devil's advocate here. I'll say that, yes, they could have voted for Bernie Sanders. The problem is not enough people are politically engaged to really know the differences between candidates. A lot of people just go off of name recognition. I've heard this name. It was also, you can blame not for 2016 per se, but in 2020, Jim Clyburn coming out and saying everyone.
He did the same thing, Carlos, in 2016, actually.
Really?
He did, yeah. He did the same thing. He he did a radio address insisting that the people of South Carolina vote for Hillary.
You know what? I just sometimes be thinking, when will these, like, I want to start saying at some point it is elder abuse for their family members to keep putting them out here and running and just like running on their friendships with these people. I understand. Yes, he's friends with, well, no, he's not friends with these people. I don't care if he's friends or not. He gets paid by the medical industry.
He gets paid by Big Pharma. He's a huge, he just takes enormous gobs of money from Big Pharma. And now his daughter's doing some big, you know, I think she's on TV now, right?
Of course. I wouldn't be surprised.
But the guy who really bothered me in 2016 was John Lewis, because he died, you know, and he was a hero of the civil rights movement. So I'm not diminishing that at all. But what he said was, I was in the, you know, he did an ad or he went on TV and he said, you know, I was a leader in the civil rights movement, which he absolutely was. And I never saw Bernie there. And I'm like, Bernie was organizing at the University of Chicago. He was doing sit-down strikes. He was right there in that moment. Now, it's true, he wasn't in Alabama with you, John Lewis. And okay, that's fine. But where the hell was Hillary? Hillary was a Goldwater girl. She was a Republican.
Thank you.
And you're caping for her.
It's like, and you're out here rah-rah-rahing for literally the wife of Bill Clinton who ushered in the crime bill. The same Hillary Clinton who basically said that like there are all these super predators of black men out there. Like, this is the person that we're trying to compare to some, like, that we're having a civil rights hero like John Lewis saying that she's the better alternative for who? To me, she's not going to help black people. She's not going to help any minority group. She's not going to even help
or women either, like those feminists like Gloria Steinem. Here's the thing, Gloria Steinem's a multimillionaire. She's super rich. Yes. I think Maya Angelou was out there for Hillary. These are wealthy women. They're not like super rich, but they're multimillionaires. They got a lot. Their interests are different from working people, and it's very frustrating. But all that said, I'm going to make my original point, which is we don't have to listen to them. No. You know, I was talking to an African-American organizer from South Carolina, and he hates Jim Clyburn. He is is it ADOS, American descendant?
ADOS, yep, American descendant of slavery.
So he's a big organizer there. I'm sorry, the name escapes me. I may have even been on this program. And he hates Jim Clyburn. He got into a big fight with Jim Clyburn on the steps of Clyburn's office. And he's like, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get the cult of Jim Clyburn down there. So I don't know, but.
So I understand this cult of black leaders, because I have some family members who are very much like they listen and follow along with these certain black leaders like Al Sharpton, Clyburn, name your random person here. The feeling is that they remember the history of these people, of like what they used to do, and they think that no matter there's no matter of influence, there's no matter of corruption, anything that can happen to these people to make them abandon the black people that they protested for, got beat up for, all that stuff. They hold on to that. And also, I think because in the black community, there is somewhat of a lack of like leadership. There's a lack of like community leaders or just well-known people that we can look to and say like, okay, you actually have a message for us that's different than the one that we continue to hear. I mean, I've looked at videos back in like the 1960s, 70s and all that. You used to have people like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Shirley Chisholm, different Black Panther leaders who would go on just like not just news shows, like talk shows, and just talk about ideas that black people should
it was
have.
There was a real intellectual side of that movement, and you don't see it as much in the elected leaders. Also, I just want to say about Jim Clyburn, tell me what I'm missing here. I'm not aware of his history in the civil rights movement.
I think he just talks about it. Like, I've never, and please, someone who's watching, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know what his legacy and why people know his name is. But he talked as if he was like a part of the civil rights movement. He was right there the whole time. I, I'm
He
along.
might have been. I'm not aware. Because John Lewis, this famous, he was at the Edward Pettus Bridge, and
Yep. He found. He
and
helped it. Like,
he was a true organizing hero.
And there's also the whole Stokely Carmichael, John Lewis beef about SNCC and about that congressional race that they also ran for too. And I think radical Black leaders, certain ones tried to run for office, and there was always them getting beat out by these establishment, more willing to suck up to white people, like white liberals, to say, hey, I'm not one of these radical people who are going to come after you as well. I'm just going to come after like the Klan people, in the outwardly racist ones, not the inwardly racist liberals.
People say that Martin Luther King wasn't that radical. I don't get that. I don't get that. I think it's because he preached nonviolence, but his actual political agenda was so radical, and he was his idea that we need a working people's movement. I find his words so inspiring, so powerful, and also to a very significant degree, he wasn't a doctor. Malcolm X was a great civil rights leader as well, and he wasn't necessarily even more radical in terms of his goals, but maybe to some degree, they came towards each other. They were kind of two Jupiter and Saturn coming together. And what a loss, because I believe, we don't know, Carlos, what's inside of people, but I can't believe they would have been corrupted the way we've seen other leaders. Maybe they would have, I don't know.
It's hard to believe. It's hard, and it's one of those things. Once you die, we're all left to our own imagination, which would be like now. But I get you. Like, they don't just seem like people who would be able to be corrupted. But one thing I will say is that I wonder if they were alive today, how many of our Black quote unquote leaders would be saying what they're saying now, or would they feel some necessity to, like, I have to kind of hold and save face and stay with the King and X movement because they're also holding me accountable. So right. I wonder just how things would have played out in that instance. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, I think that's why they were killed, honestly. Yeah. I mean, even Malcolm X, because he was not going to just bend the knee to Elijah Muhammad.
Yeah,
and just say we're going.
About the family is now suing I think it's the federal government or the FBI, because of the FBI was like wiretapping them and it was doing other things that kind of led to his death as well. So I wonder how much even his death was because of the disagreements within the nation, or was it more so the FBI is like, look, I'm kind of, because remember Malcolm X was also killed when he started talking about more about people of all races coming together now.
Yeah, no, I know.
Like, ooh, that sounds like revolution, really revolution here. No more of that.
Exactly right. But my understanding, tell me if I'm wrong about this, is that it's generally the killing of Malcolm X is generally attributed to the Nation of Islam. Is there revisionism there?
That's like the mainstream thought of it. It is also some conversations around the FBI having a hand in it, possibly like knowing that this was going to happen, not doing anything, or like pushing people towards doing that as well. So
certainly more than credible, right? Certainly very believable.
Hoover, I guess.
That would have happened. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's get to Chris Hedges. I think I played all I want to from Shama because we played the part where she went into the politics of it. And her, saying we should run, but even though she's skeptical that it can be done effectively today, she does say we need to move politically tomorrow. Hedges has a slightly different take, or a very different take. Let's play it.
It is not going to get better. The tools to shut down dissent have been cemented into place. Our democracy cratered years ago. All Trump has to do to establish a naked police state is flip a switch, and he will. The worse reality becomes, the less a beleaguered population wants to hear about it, I wrote at the conclusion of Empire of Illusion, and the more it distracts itself with squalid pseudo-events of celebrity breakdowns, gossip, and trivia. These are the debauched revels of a dying civilization. The system is not reformable. Either we obstruct in the only form left to us, which is mass mobilization, acts of sustained civil disobedience, especially the strike, or we are frog-marched into serfdom.
So I'll stop it. Oh yeah, I guess I did stop it there. Let me just
It's not going to get better.
We'll stop. Little tech issue there. So that was the whole clip I had for him. I thought I had a little more, but I guess, but it's fine. I don't. Different, right? He's not seeing a positive outcome when it comes to organizing politically or organizing labor. He's saying, no, we must obstruct in every way possible, or we'll be frog marched into the where the gulags. So who's right? Chris Hedges, Shama Sawant.
I mean, I am more inclined to say Chris Hedges because, to your point, we're not at the part where we have this big union density to be able to affect much if we did a union general strike. And also, I think one thing that Kashama Sawant, like you said, she gets to, but kind of left out within the clip is that we don't just need to build labor density. We also got to deal with the internal labor struggles of their own leadership, which is another task on top of that. So I think mass mobilization, protests, people just like saying like, no, we're just going to make the country to a point unlivable until we get X, Y, and Z, which I mean, you look at when France, they were talking about raising their age to receive pensions, and people were like, you had little farmers putting manure out just on the streets, like burning dumpsters. Like they were just saying no. And it was not even just saying we will be doing this. It was just a conversation about it. And they went crazy. So I think to a point, going crazy shows people that, you know, we're not with the shits no more.
I just can't see America. It just doesn't feel like, I mean, we've had those truck drivers who came down into the Capitol and drove around and everything, but France, I think part of the reason that they could have that, for instance, is because they do have relatively high union density and the workers can be herded together. But here we're cats, we can't be herded. So I hear what Hedges is saying, and I'm pessimistic, but this is my craziness, maybe because I'm old, but I just still think a great leader. I mean, we did elect Barack Obama. Now, you can use that in two different ways. You can say, hey, it's amazing. We came together. We elected this guy who ran as a real progressive. I mean, he really did. I'm leaving his race out of it for a minute, but he ran as someone who was going to reform the system.
Yeah.
And we won. And he betrayed us in a lot of really important ways. So that goes to the point of Sawant, which is that once they're absorbed in the Democratic Party, then they become corrupted. Now, I think probably Obama wasn't all that to begin with, but just like probably AOC wasn't. But still, there was a lot of good there, and unfortunately, I think a lot of it was lost. But the fact that we could elect him and the fact that he's black is a big deal. So why can't we do that again, Carlos, but with someone who maybe has a little more fortitude?
So, I mean, one, you're right. It definitely is a big deal to elect the first black president with a name like Barack Obama, too. It wasn't
Hussein Obama.
Like, it wasn't like, you know, Tim Smith from down the street, right? And everyone's like, okay, cool. That's cool. But I will also say that how much of Obama being corrupted by Wall Street, big tech, all your big companies and all that, how much of it was him always being like, okay, this is what I'm always gonna do, or how much of it was also the same people who said we're coming together because you're supposed to do something for us, not also saying, I want you to know that comes with strings attached to it. It's not that you can we're going to put you in there and the rest of your 4 to 8 years, we're just going to be hands off, cool, you do what you want to do. And I think that was the problem. A lot of people, once he got elected, they went into how sometimes I won't say leftist. I'll say the more neoliberal progressives get of I don't want to criticize the first black president. I don't want to say this. I don't want to say that. And it's like, no, once you get to that level, there is no, I don't want to criticize you because you're the first X, Y, and Z. It becomes, no, I need to criticize you because you're messing up my life. You're messing up my healthcare. You're not delivering any of the stuff that you should be delivering. I look at it because I've had this conversation with my family members, even when you sit there and say, oh, Joe Biden could have passed this executive order. He could have done this, and this. Those are all things Obama could have done. So we need to start looking at why aren't we always demanding the most from these people who are our so-called leaders in the community as well.
I did a program where a guy who was a big listener to it wasn't Halitics then, the morning show in Monterey, he said to me, Barack Obama is my favorite president of all time. And this is a guy who, he's in his late 70s now, I believe, mid to late 70s. So he's seen a lot of presidents. And I'm not saying there were a whole bunch of great ones out there, but he wouldn't be my favorite. And I just think it's interesting, that there's still so much. And even if you look at the pop approval ratings, it's not just black people.
Everyone.
There's the white liberal loves Barack Obama. They love Obama.
I wonder what the fully purpose of them loving Obama is. Is it that they like that vision of like a nice, upstanding black man who's like, he's not the quote unquote scary black man that we have to be worried about. He's nice, he's respectable, and he's not going to do anything that politically makes us scared. I think for black people, you have that he's the first that we've ever had. As some black people honestly also believe he's the only black president that we're going to have at the same time, which I don't believe that. I believe when Obama was elected, we're always going to have one. We're going to have a black woman at some point. We're going to have someone who's Asian American, X, Y, and Z. But to me, I think a lot of people like Obama for the personality than they do for the policy. I think that
I did when he was first elected. I was like, wow, this is really cool. He speaks so well, because you compare to like Bush, right? I'm not saying because he's black, but comparing him to W. Clinton was a little bit of a bumpkin. Clinton, very smart, not saying he wasn't, but he was a little rough around the edges. Obama's this elegant guy. He looks great in his suit. He does not got a little belly like Bill did. He's not a goofball like W was, He's not weird, and he was the law review at Harvard. He was the president. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. We got this super smart guy, and he's liberal. And it took a while, but day after day, I was like, this isn't so good. What's going on here?
I wonder where that started from, because you look at all the way back to like FDR. To me, FDR, I can't see it if he was elected because of his personality. I guess back then you didn't really hear much about the personality because there was no real media. It was more like everything was written down. You had to read it. And I don't even know if they really had like radios back then. So your voice was something people would.
Well, they had radio. He had a very good voice. He was a good speaker. He did the fireside chats. You probably are familiar with that. That was after he was elected, but the radio became big in the 1920s.
Okay.
And he was governor of New York in the 1920s, 24 to 28, I think, but I could be wrong about that. And he was followed by a guy named Al Smith, or maybe it was the other way around. I'm not sure. Maybe it was Smith and then Roosevelt. But he was on radio, had a very good voice, had a very distinctive voice. He had that cigarette with the holder, and he had a very handsome profile. He was polio, but they were able to walk around. He could walk around enough so that he didn't look like he was disabled, because there was probably more ableism, right? Is that what you call it, ableism? So there's a lot of ableism back there. People are like, oh, we'll never elect somebody who's crippled, to use that term. But yeah, he was a really powerful speaker, actually, I believe.
So I wonder how much out of all of our presidents that we've elected, even not presidents, even I think the more local you go, the less people actually care. But I think like when you go to Congress and stuff, how much of it is just personality? Is it just like, I don't really care about what you talk about so much? Like that's like a back burner to me. It's more like, do you make, like, what do they always say about Bush? He makes you feel like you can have a beer with him. Like he doesn't talk in these big words. You know, he's gonna say the things that you could be at a bar with him and think, okay, cool. The guy sitting across from me, he's Bush. Like they just, I think even why that's a part of why people like Trump. He seems, even though he is a billionaire, he doesn't have the finesse of a billionaire. He has he has the finesse of like someone's uncle, like someone's kind of drunk uncle a little.
He has the finesse of a bull in a china shop. I mean, he's just horrible, right? I mean, yeah. All right, let's get to we're agreeing on everything. So let's disagree. Here, I will play a clip. I don't have Jill Stein, who I don't think is quite as powerful speaking about good speaking as the other two. This is her running mate. I didn't get a clip of reparations discussed during the conference, but it was discussed. There was a debate over whether Workers Strike Back should or should not endorse reparations for descendants, American descendants of slaves. That was discussed. Here's Jill Stein's running mate, Dr. Butch Ware, on The Breakfast Club talking about this issue.
It is not going to get better.
That's wrong. I'm sorry. Didn't I have? Here we go. There we go. See, there's always going to be something wrong. Shouldn't I have noticed that though? That it was the wrong clip.
Like virtually or something. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
All right, here we go. Dr. Ware on The Breakfast Club, and we aren't going to get to see. I wish we could see. What's her name? The woman who wasn't a happy camper.
Angela Rye.
Angela Rye. We're not going to see her. We're not going to get to see her. But here's Dr. Ware.
Had posted a reel about reparations. I posted a reel where she was talking about it. And she was asked, and she sort of went around for about 90 seconds, and then she ended by saying, "I will never do anything that only helps Black people." In other words, it was a rising tide lift all boats. We're going to have social policies and stuff that helps Black folks by default. So I asked Dr. Jill in the interview, "What's your position on reparations?" And she said, "They behave as though it's incalculable, but it has been calculated by specialists many times. It's between 10 and $13 trillion US, and I'm in favor of cash payments to the descendants of the enslaved." So this had my attention with that, right? The second.
And then he's going to talk about the Palestinians. Did you hear that? Because it was kind of low. Yeah. I hope you could catch it.
Yeah, I heard it. It sounded good for me.
Right. So obviously, what Dr. Ware is saying there is Dr. Stein, Jill Stein, Butch Ware were for reparations, and that was part of her platform. This was not part of the Workers Strike Back. There was a debate, and Jill Stein didn't really talk about it, but we had a vote, and it was voted down. And in fact, Shama Sawant spoke out against it, and you and I see this a little differently. So is it your view? We'll share what you think about that.
Yeah, I think America should pass reparations. I mean, it's been done for other communities who have been aggrieved, I guess is the right word for that. I am for it in terms of cash payments. I don't know the specifics of how that would be worked out. I'm also for it in when it comes to programs, like different programs, some being universal programs that kind of affect everyone. Had some of that, like rising tide, all boats theory, but also very targeted programs as well to the Black community, because we've seen laws be put in laws and also government working to be done to specifically go against Black communities as well.
So I'm not going to argue with you. I'm going to just sort of give some counter thoughts and kind of align thoughts too, because my view on this is really not set in stone. Although I did take a position against including reparations in the actual platform, because I agree with the concern that it is divisive, that it pits poor, struggling, working people against each other. And I don't think that's really arguable. It doesn't mean it's wrong, but you shake your head. You disagree with that?
I don't think it puts working class people against each other. I honestly think it should be a fight of all working class people to see, hey, if this is one group of working class people who aren't getting something, we all need to come together for their defense, because we even look at things like when Social Security and things were formed. That would have been nice once it was formed to be used by everyone, but we know people who were domestic workers couldn't get that, and the large majority of domestic workers were Black. So it would have been nice if the working class then saw it as a working class issue that Black people weren't included in this, to say, cool, now we're going to take up that fight to make sure Black people are also included. And I think that one of the fractures of the working class is that you have a lot of, and this isn't just white working class people, almost all, not the majority of non-Black working class people also do not agree with reparation. So it also makes it hard sometimes for the Black community to come on and say, oh, we're part of this working class struggle, when it's like, you all don't support the things that will uplift our community because we're struggling worse than you all. And then it's hard.
But is that fair? I mean, is it fair to say we're struggling worse? I mean, you could, then you're doing it as an aggregate. But some African Americans are not struggling at all. And yes, some are struggling worse. I get to the question I often have asked, I'll put, but before we get actually, so one of the things Sawant said is, they pushed for this Amazon tax and they got it in Seattle. And part of the Amazon tax specifically set aside money that was raised to help communities that had been bypassed, that had been, were cut off by highways. And those were predominantly African American. And so even though the bill didn't specifically use the term reparations and it was facially neutral, a disproportionate amount of the money that was raised did go to communities of color. And I think that is a fair response, because then you're saying, okay, you were harmed, your group was harmed, just like the Japanese who got reparations for internment were the actual people who were interned. They weren't people, they're kids. It wasn't grandkids. You didn't get money if you might have been 3 years old, you got money if you were in the camp. But if you were born 3 years after your parents were released, you didn't get money. So that's sort of the argument. And if you're displaced, then you should get compensated for that because you personally were harmed. But I don't know about the descendants of those folks. I think then you look at their actual current condition. And yeah, you get healthcare, you got a job, you got a home, but we're not going to give you money because you weren't directly. No, you weren't direct. I mean, that's my response. You can disagree. You're smiling. You don't agree with me, so that's fine.
No, you're good. And yeah, thank you for that response too, because I always love hearing people's different aspects on it, because it is a hard push on different people. I would say going back to your point a little bit ago, that you said, well, not all Black people are doing well, and you wouldn't put it as Black people are kind of on the bottom of the totem pole with things. When we look at kind of the disproportionate, like let's look at like health outcomes of like maternal mortality rates. When we look at like for high blood pressure, all these like infectious diseases, Black people are always we're the main people out of the country who get it. Like we hold the biggest percentage of that. When you look at arrests, we're the biggest recipients percentage-wise based on our race of those as well. Like all the majority, even when you look at education rates, we have some of the lowest education rates as well. And it's hard to, like, I do get your point where it's like, hey, you have your Oprahs, your Tyler Perry's, your named billionaire Black person there, Blackface in high places. When you look at the majority of Black people, we do not all share that. And I do think I am for carve-outs of wealthy people from getting some of these handouts.
But Carl, let me just quickly jump in. But what you're saying about the health, it's totally accurate what you're saying. But wouldn't Medicare for All address that? It would also say, hey, I don't know if it's more, there's more white people than Black people, but a much higher percentage of African Americans have substandard health care. Correct? I mean, they just do.
Yeah, you're right.
So if you guarantee everyone through Medicare for All, through single payer healthcare, wouldn't that address the disproportionate number of Black people who don't have good healthcare, but also like the white folks in Appalachia who don't have teeth because, and I don't mean to be making fun of it, but who really don't have teeth, they don't have dentists they can see. So isn't that right? Isn't that functionally reparations in a sense?
No, but I will say I agree with you as far as like having Medicare for All definitely would help Black people, white people, everyone across the board. The problem with that is that when we see things help everyone across the board, that also does not mean that everyone is now at the same standard, because we can see healthcare for all. Yes, everyone has it. We still have the system is set up in a way where, are there even enough hospitals in the Black areas to help people? Do we have enough doctors who don't have the same mindset and belief that Black people can go through certain kind of illnesses and be okay with it just by the thought of you being Black? I mean, there's still doctors and nurses who believe that our Black skin is thicker than white skin, or that our pain tolerance is a lot higher than white people, so they don't believe us when we say we're in pain. So it's one of those things like, yes, the universal programs will help, but we also have to address within that universal programs, how are we stopping these kind of disproportionate problems that we're having as well? And I think some of those need to be addressed on a specific level. Like we could all say everyone has healthcare. Why? I guess how do you think that if everyone had healthcare, that the disproportionate health effects would be kind of like at the same level then, or do you think you would still see those?
Well, I think the problems that you would raise would be not eliminated, but would be greatly reduced, and then we could address the lingering prejudices and bigotry and such. And I think there should be a push. I mean, I'm not really big on affirmative action either, but what I would like to see is, and I don't consider this to be affirmative action, but you find underserved communities that don't have enough doctors. You go out and you find people in those communities who would be good doctors and who want to be doctors, but and make medical school affordable for them, which it most certainly isn't. We have a doctor shortage anyway. I mean, I don't think it matters that much. It really shouldn't matter much what skin color your doctor is, but it does matter to a degree. It matters to the patient, and then the doctor will have, presumably, in some cases, more knowledge of the community, the issues that their community is going to. Now, I don't know that Barack Obama would have been particularly knowledgeable, but he might have been. I don't know. I mean, he grew up in a white household in Hawaii, so it's not always going to be the case, but a lot of times it'll be the case.
No, you're right. I mean, also you look at it like every Black person, or it's the term all skin folk and kinfolk, meaning just because you're Black doesn't mean you're looking out for Black people. You can be just looking out for yourself personally. But no, I mean, I agree with your synopsis there of like getting some of these universal programs and then using that to as like a starting base to also fighting for the systemic problems that we see that disproportionately affect Black people. I think the problem that I'll say me as a Black person have with that as well is that, are we going to get to the same point that we always seem to get to once we fight for some universal program and we see that as Black people, we're not really getting the same like equity out of it that white people are getting? Are we going to actually see white people fight, or not just white people, but people of all races fight to make sure that we also get the equal treatment that everyone else is getting as well? And that's the part that I think is hard to get past Black people, because we've just seen it so many times that we never get these same
I get
outcomes.
you. I hear you. I mean, these are not easy questions. I get it. I mean, we come down to different places, in part probably a large part because of who we are. But and I hate to make it personal. I mean, I always say it. Hey, I'm privileged. I can't really put myself in the shoes of folks who are really struggling. But I would say to you, Carlos, I know you, we're friends. You're not like from some hard scrabble, back, woods or inner city community. You're from a family, you're good. Yeah, middle class, you're fine. What if you're some poor white kid? You'd be looking at Carlos. I mean, wait, what's he getting that? Why does he get his hand out there? Put something. We were talking about that, right? Like, and Black people in the middle class, Black people are like, why are they getting their hands? What is their hand out for? So this is what people do. That's why you say, let's just base it on you're a human being. You got health care. You have a home. This is what we guarantee, but you have enough, but no one has too much. So all those billionaire whites and to some Blacks and some Asians, we're going to take a lot of money from you. You don't get all that.
I agree with that. It's just, I agree with everything. I agree with parts of what you said. I think that if it can be done in a way that makes sure that no one in the working class movement is left out, regardless of what their skin color is, I think that would work. I think it's also going to have to come through some form of, there's going to have to be like some deep-seated conversations about why Black people and white people don't feel, we always say Black and white, I guess they're the main two in this issue, I guess, but just Black people and also all other races of people, because we also saw the Asian American community come out against affirmative action when it comes to colleges, because they were saying that we, as Black people who make up a very small percent of these elite colleges, are taking up their roles. One thing you kind of notice, they really didn't say white people were taking up their spots too much when they make up more of a population in these schools than we do. And now you see with affirmative action gone, the white enrollments are also coming down as well. And then white people are upset about that. So I think whenever one group feels that we are always, like, we're being targeted as the ones that, oh, we don't need to push these things to you all are like, you'll be fine, or we get overlooked, I think that's the problem, and that trust needs to be built back. But I do agree with you. It's easier to get a universal program passed that everyone sees themselves in. And I also wonder, is it a chicken or egg thing? If we do these universal programs, does it put other races in a better economic stance along with Black people? So now people don't have this dissension of, you can't get this because you get this and I don't get this and da da da. Or do we fix the deep-seated kind of racial tensions within the country to get these universal policies where we all believe that we will all get them equally? I don't know which one should happen first. I think there's more of a movement to get the universal policies passed.
I mean, I think if you look at American history, the time we got civil rights when there was relative, not by any means true, but relative economic equality between classes, and even the wealth gap and the income gap between Blacks and whites is much higher now than it was 70 years ago.
You're right.
Which is amazing when you think about it. But it's because the CEO class has made so much and has so much in working class people. I mean, in some ways, it's gotten worse. I was always amazed. I don't know if you saw this, but I mean, 100 years ago, there was a significant number of Black farmers. And now there's like no Black farmers. And I think that's very, very awful. I think that's terrible.
But then how that also gets to, like, my point why it's hard to be like kind of trusting of always looking at universal policies, because you see the Farmers Bureau and all them, they fight for that farm bill to make sure their farmers get funding. No one really heard their voice when Black farmers started going away. I mean, even look at the man in Minnesota who was shot by the police in his car. When he told the officer, Philando Castile, he told the officer, I have a gun on me, I have a permit for it, all that. The officer shot him. The NRA did not come out at all to say, hey, this is a lawful gun owner. Why was he shot for owning a gun? They look at it as, that's not our beef, that's not our fight. And I think that's the problem.
These are terrible things. I mean, racism is terrible. And I'm not of course, but I guess we get into how do we respond to it? What's the best way? And I just always am like, well, everyone should have enough and no one should have too much. But you know, that's just not enough. That's not satisfying for a lot of people, and I get it. All right, let's move. Sticking with race, we're going to get to everybody's favorite liberal, democratic, shill media, MSNBC, the home of Rachel Maddow, among others, and we'll even hear from Rachel a little bit. So, new bloodbath. This is how the Daily Beast frames it. I love this. Non-white angers after Joy Reid. I love that because it's like designed, isn't it, to pit people against each other, right? It's your Washington Post, which owns Daily Beast.
Oh, really? And oh, wow. I didn't even know that.
They may have sold it, but they used to own it. And there's a picture of those hosts. And I'll be honest with you, I was pretty skeptical about the whole argument that the Black hosts were being terminated because they're Black. And you can see this image of Ayman, who is, I don't know I can't say his last name. He's a Palestinian. He's a Muslim. I think he is Palestinian. He's been pretty outspoken pro-Palestine. You've got Jonathan Capehart in the middle there. I have to sort of laugh at his smile. And then Katie Fang, I believe is her name. So you've got, the Middle Eastern, you've got African-American, and you've got, so I look at this picture and, I thought to myself, how could they be letting Capehart go? This guy is the most establishment, right? He's the most elite. He's a Washington Post guy. He's wealthy. Look at he's got his collared shirt and his blazer. I mean, he's right at home at the country club. If they're going to fire him, I'm like, maybe it is because he's black, because I can't come up with any other reason that MSNBC would want to get rid of Jonathan Capehart.
So this is where everything I just said, we're gonna transfer a little bit. It's the rich people, like, BS to me. I feel like I wouldn't call this just because of racism. Now, is their ratings for their shows maybe down? Does that have to do with race? Maybe it does have a little bit to do with, like, just it's easier to fire non-white people than it is white people for certain things. I don't know for this, because this is more rich people shit. But I will say that when it comes to, I don't know if the first person that's there who was the Palestinian person, I don't know, are they someone, if there's someone who speaks very, like, out about the genocide and all that, I can see MSNBC saying, look, we're tired of having that conversation here. Jonathan Capehart, from just little clips I've seen, he's a very boring person.
I think that's it, right? He's not very good. Is that the issue with him? But his ratings, we're going to show. I was surprised his ratings aren't even that bad, apparently. Ayman is the most outspoken on MSNBC, I believe, in support of Palestinians. And he wasn't fired completely. He'll still be on as a contributor, I believe, but he won't have his own show. And the same with the Asian woman, Katie, I believe is her name, if I may be wrong. I think Capehart is gone. It may have also been a salary dispute, because that's part of the problem is we don't know all the facts, and MSNBC's revenues are way down. Their ratings are way down across the board, and they're putting their thumb. So these poor underpaid people only making maybe $2 million are going to have to get by with $1 million to go on TV and talk for 30 minutes a week or whatever they do. So, but yeah, Capehart, I never got, like, why he even had a show, to be honest with you.
I didn't. Honestly, I didn't even know he had a show. I thought he was just a contributor himself. So.
No, there's the Jonathan Capehart show. Yes, wow. Absolutely.
There's an audience for that. Okay, well, hey, it takes.
Well, and his ratings aren't even terrible. We'll see the ratings because Sabby shows the ratings. Mm-hmm. We'll play a clip. Here is, and by the way, thank you. Carlos Child's with us. Carlos is a friend. Carlos is a writer. He's an activist. You want to see what he's written, just type Carlos Childs in your Google thing and it'll pop up is the easiest way. But Maryland Matters, they publish him, and he does a lot of really great stuff. And he's been with different groups like I have. But let's play. So there's those two. I mean, it feels like they took pictures that were sort of designed to make them look kind of bad. I don't know. Do you agree with that, or is that just Rachel and Joy-Ann Reid? I don't know. There's something about, I'm sorry, folks can't see that. There you go. I don't know. I don't know.
It's a nice, it's Black History Month. I'm gonna say it's a nice picture of Joy.
You think so? She's kind of smirking a little bit though. Like she's, I don't know.
Like, I don't want to be here right now. Like, I don't get Rachel Maddow.
I don't know where they got those pictures, but let's play the clip. This is actually neither of them speaking. This is Crystal Ball. Here we go.
Oh, cool.
Notably, last night, and on Rachel Maddow in her primetime show, and Rachel, of course, is the big dog at the network and is very loyal to the network as well. She actually criticized them for some of these moves. Let's take a listen to how she framed it.
In all of the jobs I have had, in all of the years I have been alive, there is no colleague for whom I have had more affection and more respect than Joy Reid. I love everything about her. I have learned so much from her. I have so much more to learn from her. I do not want to lose her as a colleague here at MSNBC. And personally, I think it is a bad mistake to let her walk out the door. It is not my call, and I understand that, but that's what I think. I will tell you, it is also unnerving to see that on a network where we've got two non-white hosts in primetime, both of our non-white hosts in primetime are losing their shows, as is Katie Fang on the weekend. And that feels worse than bad, no matter who replaces them. That feels indefensible, and I do not defend it.
So
before we get to hear their response, I did want to interrupt her with a couple of thoughts. First is, do you like watching Rachel Maddow? Do you think she's talented?
how I'm going to say something that you probably can guess. I've never watched the Rachel Maddow show.
Oh, really?
I've seen clips here and there. I've never watched her all the way through.
Oh, I didn't expect you to say that. I didn't know. I assumed like most of us, you'd at least seen some Rachel. I never watch her show either, but I've seen the clips, right?
Yeah. I mean, she seems like I don't know. She seems just standard issue. Like, I feel like if I was a neoliberal, she'd be great. Okay. She gives you all the reasons why Republicans are the only people who are bad. She doesn't push back against the party. I mean, she makes you feel I guess, maybe she is the neoliberal version of like Tucker Carlson. She's a Democrat Tucker Carlson.
I almost like her. I don't get the thing that I don't think she's even very good. I don't like her facial expressions and her kind of moving around with her head. Like AOC, when you watch an AOC video, she's doing this. And I'm like, come on, just sit there. Do I need to see you? Are you in a rocker? Come on. You're 35. You're not 85. Why am I seeing you going like this? And same thing with Rachel. It's all like her smirks and her, nothing. She does nothing for me. And maybe it's exactly why you said, because I don't agree with anything. I find her just a propaganda. She's just a mouth organ for the Democratic Party.
Yeah, to me, she's never had anything really interesting to say. Like, I don't listen to her in the clips I've heard of like anything new coming up. It just seems like I feel like what you can listen from her, you can listen to any other MSNBC contributor, and it would kind of be like, all right, cool, I'm getting the same talking points.
Well, she has a certain manner about her, which I guess some people think really bespeaks talent, and she's worth 30 million or now 25 million a year. Wow. Okay. All right, let's hear some more from Crystal. Here we go. She just played the clip from, before we know, so she said it feels bad. We've lost our two. Were they both black? Wait, who are the two that were lost?
I don't know.
There was another one.
Joy-Ann Reid. I have zero idea.
It's a little bit disingenuous because the replacements are going to be people of color.
Wait, was it the other guy? David.
Well, Capehart, but he's a weekend. But she was talking about Capehart's weekend. But I guess there's another weekday. I don't know.
I don't know.
All right, let's play Crystal. Here we go.
Decided to criticize the network at all, which again is pretty unusual. Joy had her last show last night. Her final panel was like Rachel, Nicole Wallace, and Lawrence O'Donnell, which seemed to be like a show of support for her, whatever. So in any case, like I said, they are quelling some of the few. And Joy also was critical at times of the Democratic Party, even though she hated Bernie Sanders from the whole body language expert situation. But she has been critical of the Democratic Party at times. That will be gone. Eamon, like I said, has been critical. That will be gone. And Alex has been critical on Israel. That will be gone as well. So there you go.
Yeah, but that's my thing with Rachel Maddow. It's like all she sees is color. It's like it makes a lot more sense from an ideological perspective.
See, I think what he's saying is exactly right. I do think the color issue is I don't think we should ignore it. I don't think we should. And Sabby talks a little bit. She doesn't even talk about it, but there's other reasons that seem to make a lot of sense, right? Like that. And it tells you about how bad I think MSNBC is, that Joy Reid is kind of their voice of opposition.
It's a sad day on MSNBC when she's the frontier of change. Not who I would guess. I guess it was Mehdi Hassan, and he was the one to speak out, but they also let him go because of the whole genocide thing. So to me, I'm like, I don't want to assume that it is. I can't say it's purely off of race at all. Could race have played an aspect? Maybe. Could it being just their MSNBC is like, look, we're losing ratings here. We just need to fully invest into this democratic operation. Any dissent will be treated as treasonous. Because to me, I can see them replacing her with like Simone Sanders or something.
Well, they did replace her with Simone Sanders.
Oh,
they did.
Hooray.
So this is where I've got a problem. Like, I'm like, wait, how is it racism? You've replaced one woman who shaves her head or cuts her hair who's black, who cuts her hair really short, with another one because she has the same hairstyle. So I'm like, where is and Michael Steele? It's going to be Simone Sanders. Well, here, let me show you the picture. By the way, in terms of racism also, Crystal Ball, I believe, lost her job from, or maybe she quit, but they treated her very badly. She was on MSNBC, and last I checked, she's white. In fact, you can see from that picture. So, no, this is the replacement team, okay? This is going to replace, this is the team replacing the Joy Reid show.
There's a likeness for like if people want to watch this. I feel okay, just as a Marylander who lives in a state that Michael Steele is from, I do not get the fascination with Michael Steele. I feel like this is like a neoliberal kind of like thank you to him of like thank you for being against Trump. Here's your consolation prize. You know, go do your thing.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see this because if you look at that team, Alicia Menendez, Latina, she is the daughter of what they call him Gold Bars Bob. You know, Robert Menendez from...
Not Bobby.
Yeah, Bob Menendez from, you know, the Egyptian, the guy with Egyptian connections. Yeah, I mean...
Okay.
So there's your new team and...
No dissent coming from them. No dissent coming from them at all.
None. No.
Sanders went from the Bernie Sanders to the Joe Biden and to this. Like to me, I think Simone Sanders' biggest was I can see her as being someone who just wanted to move up the ladder and get what she wanted. I think she thought Bernie Sanders would be Hillary Clinton, so let me work with Bernie Sanders. He lost. Cool. I got to go straight up into just establishment politics. Let me get with Joe Biden. She wanted to be a press secretary. They kicked her to Kamala Harris's press secretary. She was probably mad about that and said, cool, I'm going to just go and do news. And this will be my consolation prize for not winning what I wanted to win was a press secretary. And now she gets to do it with a Republican who's, I mean, he's still a Republican. He's a
Republican. I mean, they got a Republican guy. So, but it kind of, the idea of this race kind of founders when you look at the faces. But that said, I don't totally reject it either. And we're going to play Sabby here. Sabby doesn't, she gives a lot of reasons and she doesn't think it's race either, or at least she doesn't say it is. But there's one little spot in here where I'm like, wow. And part of it is the K part. Part of it really was the K part, because if the motive for the terminations is these people aren't quite as loyal as we need them to be, I don't know who's a more loyal Dem than Jonathan Capehart. So
exactly. Real quick before you play that though, I wonder how much Simone Sanders, Michael Steele, and the daughter of Bob Menendez, I forgot her name.
Alicia.
I wonder, Alicia Menendez. I wonder combined what their salary is compared to what Joy Reid's salary was, and is it like a $10 million difference to where they're like, look, we can take the same insert black and Latina people here, and they're going to be this less salary than you, and y'all all say the same thing anyway. So
we get 3 for 1, right? Because I think Joy was getting around, I could be wrong, I think she may have been in the $3 million range, which is a tenth of what Maddow was making. But even so, they probably could pay those 3. Although Simone Sanders, she's sort of a name, right? I mean, she's on CNN. I don't know what the market is for them, but
it's weird that there is a market. I don't know who's turning on their news to say, "Ooh, let me hear what Simone Sanders thinks."
Or Michael Steele.
Who is listening to this man?
Or Alicia, I don't even know. But she's, you know, if you're the daughter of somebody famous, you get on TV. You're Bush, right? Jenna Hager Bush. You get to be a host with Hoda Kotb because you're a Bush. It's ridiculous.
Look at Meghan McCain. You get to be a star of the View.
That's right. If you're McCain, yeah, exactly right. Meghan, exactly right. That's especially if you're a Republican daughter, you get real advantages. I'm waiting to see what happens with the 2 Obama girls, Malia and Sasha, because they're now adults, right?
Yeah. No, I think they're gonna do. I don't think they're gonna do the whole MSNBC CNN contributor thing. I think they're gonna do the movie premieres type of thing, because I know one of the daughters after they finished their term as president, one of them was like working as like a staff person for a actor or actress or something. So I mean, and the Obamas have contracts with the same company that Kamala Harris just signed a contract for as like a celebrity publisher kind of contract.
I didn't
which,
know that.
Yeah, I think it's so weird that we have literally politicians. We view them so much as just like celebrities at this point that they go out and sign like celebrity contracts to just be floated around.
It's ridiculous. And that's a lot of reason I think there's a lot of hatred towards some of them because people, you think, oh, we look up to these Hollywood stars, and some people do, but others resent them terribly and feel like it's absurd the way they live, which it kind of is.
It is.
I think Obamas are close to George Clooney, so maybe there's some tie there. Okay, let's listen to, I love how Sabby has the shot of Joy tearing up there. There's no love lost. There's no love lost. Here she is. Let's see if this works. There we go. Maybe. We're having a lot of trouble here. A lot of trouble. Let's see this.
But I think that when it comes to Joy, it was a combination of things. I think it was obviously the ratings dropping. I think it was obviously, don't forget the hot mic moment when Joy Reid said, starting another damn war. Don't forget about that. And that wasn't supposed to be on air.
Which, by the way, I do remember her saying that. And I thought, wow, I was like, I'm sort of impressed. But what frustrated me was after she said that, Carlos, then she it was forgotten. Like it never came back. It wasn't.
Oh.
Do you remember when she said that? Oh, it's another day.
Seeing the clip of it, I just didn't do the follow up of did she start talking about the war more? Because she really didn't talk about it. She talked about it when it was kind of more acceptable to talk about it.
But she did more than the others. I don't think Rachel ever did. So
it's sad it's not that sad. I have to also remind myself, it's not that sad because MSNBC isn't made for anyone on the actual left. It's made for the people who don't really care. But hopefully, I don't know. It's a private company doing what they want to do.
By the way, I think that is such an important point that you just made, Carlos, because we're spending a lot of time on this. Obviously, it's my program. I set it up this way. But I don't really care about MSNBC. I think it's pretty much a nothing burger.
Yeah. I would love to see it be shut down. At some point, just it can't survive anymore and just go out of business. To me, that would be better. And the problem is too. I think that one thing I think should be done too on the left, speaking to someone who's in the left media space as well as yourself. I think there needs to be work done to make a TV show for the left, somewhere that they can platform themselves, somewhere that they can have new shows running constantly, just like these other people, mainstream media as well. I think at one point TYT was supposed to do that, but then there's all the problems with TYT as an organization. You have, I don't know what other shows even.
Well, didn't RBN try that Revolutionary Blackout Network with them and Sabby and maybe Brianna Joy Gray? I don't know if she was ever part of that, but
part of that. But yeah, they still do that. Let's try to make their shows. You also have Breaking Points, which I think wants to be one of those that counterpoints. I think they want to have their own shows and things like that as well. But I'm to me, that's the only way the left can actually media-wise branch out there to get more of these just normie people who just need to hear this stuff.
I thought there was some other host besides, because I know Sabby, at least at one point, was working with Nick Cruz and CJ from RBN, but I thought they had someone else. They've got other names.
JB or something, I think.
Say again?
Somebody named JB is on there sometimes as well. So, and I think they have people come in, like Nico House and stuff. They have people who come in for a certain time period and then leave out, I think, or something.
They kind of tried to build it. Well, they call it RBN, so it's network. So that's why. And you're right about Breaking Points too, because they have Ryan Grimm and they have the woman conservative, the blonde. Which by the way, I like that format. I like that they have, conservative and a progressive or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah,
let me play this one more time. Let me see if I can get the beginning from Sabby, because I wanted to actually pause it. By the way, Carlos has been with us for over an hour and a half. We were going to keep it at 60 minutes. So I apologize to you, and B, thank you.
Oh, of course. I thought we've only been talking for 30, 45 minutes. It's been a great conversation.
Well, I always love talking to Carlos. I learned so much, and think he brings a lot to this program. We'll probably double our listeners. I'm expecting to see 8 or 10 numbers, 8 or 10 listeners at least, viewers at least.
Okay.
Here we go. Back to Savvy. All right, so I'm going to stop it. So here's her ratings. I don't know if you can see that, but if you look, so look at the 10 and 11. Saturday show with Capehart, and then the Sunday shows a big jump. So I'm like, wow, he actually did pretty well.
Yeah.
But who knows? I think that this is just 1 month and it's one segment, but
was it something on before that or after that, and people just let me turn to it early, or just left their TV on that night? Oh.
Yeah, but he's got some numbers. And then you see how badly Al Sharpton is doing, because he's 9, but he does, I believe, a weekday show. So he's way lower than Joy Reid, but yet he's keeping his job.
Yeah. Oh no, of course not our good Reverend Hal. We got to keep the good Reverend so he can, basically corrupt the Black radical movement and tell Black people that for the George Floyd policing bill that, hey, you all, the perfect cannot be whatever that term is.
Enemy of the good, I guess.
Yeah,
you are so cynical. I love it, by the way.
It's just like I have seen so many like corrupted Black leaders that I feel like at some point these older establishment Black leaders who made a name for themselves back in the day. I mean, hey, even for Al Sharpton, there's a lot of talk about him being like a FBI plant in the civil rights movement as well.
Really?
So yeah, so I'm like, hey, some of us need to stop looking at some of these civil rights leaders as these big heroes now. Great for what you did back in the day. We're not back in the day. We're in now, and you're not helping us now. So you got to go. But of course, he's going to keep his show for the sake of it. I mean, to me, go manage your nonprofit that took the $1 million from Kamala Harris's campaign for you to support her, and ushering Black people to go to Costco just because they didn't get rid of DEI, which one day we should have a conversation just about DEI.
Or Target, right? That they're not going to go to Target, yeah.
And I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's the best use of resources. I know that's being done, and I get emails about it, and I'm like, wow, okay. I mean, if that's where you want to spend your time, I don't know. Maybe it is a good idea.
All that money,
I don't feel like it's my place.
All that money he took to give people Costco gift cards, you could have given that money to help like Black people struggling somewhere. You could have actually like given people money at the least to go buy directly from the Black businesses, not to have to help Costco, who you look at their board of directors, they only have one Black person on their board of directors. So it's like, what are we really getting? But then that also gets into the larger conversation of DEI, which I think DEI is really sold to a lot of non-white people and white women too, as well, as this great help. I mean, weird thing is how I was trying to figure out at one point, what did DEI, like, where did that originate of us, like, of just that being pushed as a big thing? That came out of the George Floyd movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. They started saying, once they knew we're not going to change how police work, what about diversity in the workplace? Doesn't that sound like a good consolation prize to you all?
Well, it's an alternative to actual meaningful restructuring of society and redistribution of wealth, power, and income, which is what we need. So it's kind of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. As well, we'll give a few like entry-level jobs to some Black people instead of white people.
Yeah,
and also, we'll keep all of our perks, of course, but
I mean, honestly, how you look at the biggest recipient of DEI programs are white women, because they're seen as a minority group as well. So it's like, it's not even quote unquote helping. I don't think DEI was ever meant to help. I think a lot of people, if you ask them what DEI means, they'll give you their own personal aspect, but they can't say what it actually did to actually help people. Like, they can't see it at all.
I mean, there are some really good initiatives, right? I mean, no question. You do want to reach out to underserved communities. I actually totally support that. You want to make sure, people talk about how the wheelchair access, right? Like people with disabilities couldn't work certain jobs. Now they can. So there's some very positive aspects to it. But ultimately, I think these kind of programs fail because they don't change the actual way power and wealth are shared in this society, which is they're not shared. Just a few people have them. Okay, let's get to, speaking of corruption, this is a group you and I both worked for, Our Revolution, and they're really excited. This is February 5. The new DNC chair, Ken Martin, has just been elected, and our former supervisor, boss, whatever you want to call him, he's really, really excited about this. I want to get your take. Here we go, though. Let's play the clip. Oh, it's frozen. He'll start. Now I wanted to say they put this up. They're bragging. This is their victory lap. This clip, big moment in exclamation points. DNC chair. You know what? I hate to say this, Carlos. It is embarrassing. I feel like it. I mean, it's a small group, and like remember we saw Chuck Schumer standing outside some office waving a sign, and when we order, you know, it's come on. Nobody's buying what you're selling. But no. I just want to play a little more because they're very excited. This is their big moment. It is a big moment.
No more fossil fuel. No more fossil fuel. What else? Healthcare for all. Healthcare for all. We're gonna make some progress today. But the key. Hey,
and look, he's shaking hands. See, this is look. There's an embrace and everything.
Ken will win.
And there he stayed for 2 seconds. So, do you think, in all seriousness, Carlson? Obviously, I asked the question. I'm giving you the answer that I have, but I mean, is there anything to that? Does that signify any real power or influence in the Our Revolution group?
I think it signifies their power to get along with the Democratic Party. They're going along for no reason. I love that they're chanting billionaires out, workers in, or just chanting it, I guess, because the same man who they're hugging, embracing, and doing all that says that they're good billionaires and their Democratic Party will take money from good billionaires. So to me, it's like yelling at a wall and expecting the wall to move. Like the wall does not know you, care about you, it doesn't hear you, it's just gonna sit there all day long. You can yell all you want to, you're not gonna get anything. I mean, I don't get the fascination with organizations that will basically be disrespected their entire time and then come out and then still support the same people who are disrespecting them. To me, it would have been nice if they were out there just protesting against, not even if they don't want to go as far as protesting against Ken Martin, protesting for that's a waste too. Protest for the Democratic Party to take up these universal policies, even these like barely leftist policies. Like at this point, the Democratic Party doesn't care about what you are selling. They honestly, I don't think the Democratic Party even sees them as opposition. Some people we need to do at least appease. It's like we will do what we want to. You can figure out if you want to be happy about it or not. We don't really care if you're happy or not.
Well, the organization, Our Revolution, made a big deal about how the other primary candidate, Ben Wickler, had the support of I think Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. So they're saying, oh, look, see, we are back in the progressive who's taking on the bosses, except, you know, who was backing Ken Martin? Our old friend Jim Clyburn. So wow. It's the same thing. I mean, it's just two sides of the same corrupt coin. There's no real meaningful difference. And in fact, when they do that, they're each giving, you know, a little cover, right? They're giving cover to the other one to a degree.
To me, it's funny.
I find it very frustrating, but you know, Our Revolution still has some. They do. I think it's fundraising. They can do these videos and say, look, we have influence in the Democratic Party. Our chair gets a handshake with the DNC, and who gives rat's fat butt. I mean,
That's
but
what I don't get either. I want to know how are they raising money off of that? Because if I was even a neoliberal person, I'm thinking, okay, so what do you want from me? A cookie? Like good for you. I mean, he was there. He hugged you. Have a nice day. But to me, I think this is something that the establishment does very, very well sometimes, where they'll put two establishment people up against each other and basically have some of the establishment support one person, some of the establishment support the other person, and then you start taking sides over the worst two candidates, basically, or the most establishment candidates, and then you kind of say, oh, well, this one's better because Nancy Pelosi didn't endorse him, so we're going to support him. You're still not getting anything. They just turned you against each
right,
other.
exactly. They got nothing. They got nothing out of it. No concessions. Just like they were out there knocking doors for Kamala. They got. I wanted to ask Joseph Guivarese. I was hoping so badly to get an opportunity. He doesn't take my calls or anything, but I thought I was going to be able to confront him and say, well, did you talk to her before you went up to Pennsylvania? Did she say she's going to pull the troops out? She's going to stop giving money to Israel to kill Palestinians? Or did you get like a promise to have a vote on Medicare for all? Is that why you're doing this? I mean, because if not, why are you doing it?
Thank you. And there's no reason for them to do, like, I don't think that, and I could be wrong, because I don't think that the same Our Revolution base that started it are the same people who are in it now. I think they are much more of a let's get in all who may come. Now we'll take the neoliberals, we'll take the like progressives, and there's also this thing around some of the people who supported Bernie Sanders, whether they were actually like leftist people or not, or they were just neoliberals who just want healthcare. And it's like, hey, I'm just here for this one thing. Now they don't believe they're ever going to get the one thing. So, hey, we're just going to get along, do what people say. We don't want to make nobody too angry. I don't get the point of Our Revolution at this point. Like, I don't think I also want to get your take with this, how I don't think that when it started, the goal, there was a plan for it. Because also, as you remember, once Our Revolution started, Bernie Sanders was very hands-off until he ran again. He used it just to help him run. There was no him building up anything, because I don't think that's Bernie Sanders' type of politics. I don't think Bernie Sanders is a movement builder. He is a movement leader. He will not do the work to actually make sure, okay, we change people's minds on something. Hey, I'm here. I'm the front of it. I'll push for the things that we all agree on. Once it's done, cool, I'm done.
I fear you're correct. And I think in that respect, there's a real parallel with Barack Obama, because Obama built that real powerful group that helped put him in the White House. I forget what they were called, but as soon as do you remember Democracy? Was it? It wasn't Democracy.
I don't remember the name of it. I don't remember the name, but I do get what you're talking about. How, like, once he got all these activist people energized to help get him in office, it was thank you so much, go home.
Yeah, exactly.
I won. Yeah.
We got what we won,
Yeah.
or I won, and yeah. So, but in a way, that's what Bernie did too, and. I think Bernie's further to the left than Obama, and he always has been. But yeah, he is not a movement leader so much as, or builder for sure. The organization, the thing that I think was better in my view at the beginning, and I'm a little bitter and angry about the way everything went down when I left. So, people take that with a big grain of salt. But what I think was better at the beginning is it was more local and state-based, and each state group was really independent. And when the new team came in, that was under Nina Turner. And, she wasn't as hands-on, right? I mean, she ran a more, it was more a confederation. It was more where she just was in Washington overseeing, but not really putting her hands on each group, but letting them do what they wanted to do, which had its strengths and weaknesses. But I think in the end it was better because at the state level, the Maryland level, we were able to really build something. But once the new team came in and she left, you had a lot more involvement by National. They provided some support and resources, but they took away the independence. And I think that was a greater loss.
Yeah. To me, it was a cool thing while we were in it. I think now it's kind of a failed operation as a national thing. I think it's there to be there. I mean, I don't know who's using, like, if I don't, I would love to hear one of them talk about what's the point of what they do now. Like,
Well, I would love to ask them. And in fact, Joseph was on TYT. He also did a show with Brianna Joy Gray. Did you see that? He
him and Marianne Williamson. That was a depressing little show.
He was on with Marianne. Is that the one you saw?
Mm-hmm. It was depressing.
I thought he didn't look good. I don't think they came across as good.
Him or Marianne Williamson, because at first I was one of those people who I gave her credit. I said, hey, look, she ran in 2024, this past election, when she really didn't have to. She could have just sat it out. I just think she's one of those people who she feels like, and let me not put it on her, my interpretation of it is that everyone else in the Democratic Party fails and they move up. She didn't get her fail and move up. She got her fail and you're going to stay falling. Because to me, I don't get why she ran for the Democratic Party chair. You weren't going to get that. You weren't even really suggesting you were just suggesting what every leftist would have suggested. Nice for you. There's no chance of you winning. You're not in the Democratic Party like that. You're not a part of the network. I don't get it. I think people just want a title sometimes and they take that to run with it. Now, I don't agree with people who say that she did it just for a book. Because I don't think that help. I don't think those type of books that she writes are helped by her politics. Sometimes I think her basic books, aren't they more like the Christian?
Well, self-help.
Self-help type of come to Jesus type of things and try to.
Well, she's not Christian though. I think she's Jewish.
Oh, okay.
She's been on Oprah. She kind of got to a degree her start through Oprah, I believe, or at least not only. I mean, I think she had already sold some books, but she definitely got a boost.
Yeah, so I feel like
a lot of other people.
Yeah. I feel like she should just go back to what. First of all, I think at some point there needs to be a conversation just nationally around the people who Oprah puts up. Why are they all kind of bad people?
Well, Dr. Oz, right?
Dr.
Phil. Yeah, these aren't
even the Susie Orman lady who was talking about the finances. Some scandal about her came out. I'm like, to me, Oprah, stop suggesting people to us. We like people like her. They don't like the others that come along.
Well, she got $1 million from Kamala. Then there was all this denial that she didn't, but apparently what she did get for Harpo Productions was the money to produce. So she got paid. I don't think she got an extra amount.
Yeah.
Because it costs a lot, right, to do those programs. She's got to pay all her people and she's got to pay herself and she pays herself a lot. So I don't know that it was really wrong. I'm not complaining exactly, but it wasn't like she did it either out of the kindness of her heart.
No, she's not going to say, I'm just going to donate this $1 million.
Yeah.
Because that's like a penny to her. So she could just say, here's $1 million. People, do your thing for common Harris. This is for you.
It's nothing.
Yeah. Rich people don't. I mean, paying Beyonce millions of dollars to come and talk for 5 minutes? To me, this is the state of our politics where they believe celebrity is politics. And I think that's also why people are so disengaged from politics, because if all you see is celebrities, we're going to start looking at politicians like they're celebrities. Like even how we bird dog Steny Hoyer's events twice before. The amount of people who just show up just because they like the man and his way to work a room, I will never understand.
100%. I so with you on that. They're supposed to be our servants, right? They're supposed to be our public servants, and they consistently act in their own best interests and give us the bird over and over. And you just even saw in that little clip how they were all sort of sucking up to this guy Ken Martin for nothing, for getting nothing for it. But I just was going to just get real quick back to that show that Brianna Joy Gray did with Joseph and Marianne Williamson. I played clips of it. I thought Brianna Joy Gray did a tremendous job. They knew he came across poorly. That usually in the Revolution Report, which is their weekly newsletter, anytime there's any media attention focused on Joseph, it gets a headline. There's a link. There was nothing. It wasn't mentioned.
Wow.
They didn't mention it. They didn't want anyone to even know, because she was like, well, your strategy isn't working, is it? Your inside, what have you gotten for it? Is this, and he couldn't answer.
Wow.
So they didn't even mention it.
They don't produce anything. And that's why I'm like, if they were winning like local fights that were producing things, great. Be a local organization, do ground level stuff. They want to keep meddling in federal Democratic antics. They're gonna keep, unless they honestly just come out and take a stance of like, we are here to just support Democrats winning over Republicans. They would get all the love. Joseph would probably get a MSNBC slot.
Well, he's got that guy Anand who kind of looks like him, who's got so I don't know. They have to fight over that, but they've done some good stuff. Look, I don't want to be too negative, and they even, remember I mentioned there was a woman we worked with who got the Rockville City Council. Oh, yeah. So that's Zola Shaw. She's very good. She's very progressive.
Yeah.
They work for Mark Elrich, who's one of the best electeds there is. I mean, he's not perfect by any means, but compared to most people,
one of the best executives in the state.
Yeah. So,
but then again, how that's the local side, which I think,
right.
Honestly, to me, our revolution should probably be broken up into just local organizations and let locally people do what they please, and nationally they kind of just help provide funding to local organizations and leave it at that.
That would be better. That would be better. Carlos, this is going to do it. It's always great to talk to you. We're going to try to do this again. We're going to have the Halitics network with Carlos in the network at some point. We'll get there, but I don't blame you for like being like, I don't know if I want to be part of that network. I'm not so sure about Halitics network. We'll look at the Carlitics, right?
Ooh, let's not do that.
You can see it. People call it Halitics. Have you ever, does that strike you? Is it obviously to you? Well, my name is Hal, but Halitics or
Halitics.
Halitics.
That's a weird way to look at it. I mean, maybe it's because I do know your first name that I'm like, it's not Halitics. I mean, maybe if I squint hard enough and twist my head sideways.
It's supposed to be like politics, right? That's where I got it, right? Halitics, but Halitics. Carlos, it's always great.
Always out.
You take care. I'll be in touch.
Yes, be safe out here.
Folks, this is my Friday show, so I will see you Monday.